If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
We are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Khalid Mohammed from Command 11 in Pakistan, aka Agent 711. And directly below us, my other good friend, Randy Nance, combat wounded Green Beret from back home in Texas. Good to see y'all. Before we get into the conflicted question of the night, there's a lot going on over there, Khalid, with the war between Pakistan and Afghanistan. American news outlets, of course, are not covering it. Bring us up to speed. I mean, start, if you don't mind, with the glorious news of what you did to one of the chief architects of 9/11 2.0 yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday morning, about 5 a.m., we got coordinates on the number 2 in the Pakistani Taliban, who was also part of the Al-Qaeda homeland plot. He was sending fighters to the U.S. We smoked him along with 2 people inside of Pakistan yesterday morning. We believe that the Taliban gave us his location so that we would calm down a little bit about bombing Afghanistan. Turkey forced the Taliban yesterday in the afternoon to accept that they have Pakistani Taliban on their side of the border. Since then, Pakistan has taken out something around 45 Taliban fighters on our side of the border, and about a half hour before we went on air, we took out 35 more that were coming across from the Afghanistan border. Now, a couple of things. Pakistan has again readopted the BFE strategy that we have. If we find a Taliban commander's house, we will blow up the house. We don't care who's inside of it. It is a drone strike from the air, and we take the house out. The people in the tribals have now started another practice. What they're doing now is if you kidnap someone in the police force, a group of people, a militia in the tribals comes and kidnaps a member of your family as well. So if you harm our law enforcement or our military, we will do the same to your family as well. So it's tit for tat now. So the Taliban is now shit scared inside of Pakistan because now they know their families are not safe either. And we are now to an extent that the deal between us and Afghanistan is if we catch any fighter coming across the border, we have green light to bomb inside of Afghanistan again.
So, Randy, did you catch the new book that Khalid's putting out? It's called The Art of War by Khalid Mohammed. It's kind of like Sun Tzu. It's one chapter. It just says BFE. Battle for Execution.
We kind of need a new modern version, don't we?
Yeah, we do need a new modern version. But I like how Pakistan runs the counterterrorism operations. I mean, we for a long time we were our hands were kind of handcuffed. We weren't allowed to do what we wanted to do. Then the army gave us green light at Command 11 to go and operate the way they do, the terrorists do. That changed the battlefield. And now that we are opening up on terrorist houses, it has really scared the hell out of the Taliban because they don't know what kind of bomb could come from where.
Well, if you think about it, it's a 180-degree U-turn. They went from having free reign to doing whatever they want to in Afghanistan, terror central, to all of a sudden there may be accountability. Imagine that. So
it's beyond accountability now. I mean, before you would kidnap one of our soldiers and make a video with them of them confessing they don't support the Pakistan army, they don't support the state of Pakistan. Now the problem is that if you take one of ours, we take 2 of yours. And if you beat him, we beat yours.
I was wrong. There's 2 pages in his Art of War book. BF is on the first page, 2 for 1 is on the second page. The end. You kill me, Cleve. But that is some good news. I mean, if nothing else, you're projecting what, mid-March to maybe mid-May for 9/11 2.0. We have got a few months extra to get everybody prepped up, and that's really good news for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Pakistan keeps slamming into Afghanistan, they cannot plan any kind of an attack. India, we are waiting for an attack from India on the western border, and we're hoping India comes at us because we are dead set ready for them. We heard a report that India's army needs an hour. It needs an hour.
That's BFE BOGO, by the way.
We got a report today saying that the Indian army needs an hour. If Pakistan were to put their planes in the air to attack, Indian army would need an hour. And there was a Pakistani analyst who commented, he said, do you realize the amount of damage we can do in 1 hour? We will end India within 1 hour, and you won't have anything left to attack us with.
Well, I mean, look at the 5-day conflict earlier this year. All the gear that India bought from China fell flat on its face.
No. India was using Russian gear against us. We were using China gear against them. And we couldn't see the plane, Chris. We were using over-the-horizon missiles that we couldn't see the Indian plane. But once we fired, the Chinese missiles, the Chinese satellites for tracking the Indian plane, shot them out wherever they were.
Well, I got that one backwards. Regardless, we'll carry on from there. Just a quick note for the people who are Guardians. We made some changes to the Signal chat stuff over the past 24 hours. You can't delete a Signal channel or group, by the way. So all you can do to get rid of it is remove everybody in it, then leave yourself as an admin, and then poof, it's essentially diffused and gone. So I just want to make this clear to everybody. Nobody was singled out, because I got some emails from people saying, hey, why did I get kicked out? You didn't get kicked out. We had to clean it out because we get 10 to 12,000 messages a week go through our main chat, the Guardians chat. And for some people, including myself, I can't keep up with it. And we have some of our members don't even follow that chat now because it's just so crazy busy. So we created another channel for survival and prepping. And before we had a chance to get a admin team in place, it turned into a carbon copy of the Guardians. And we don't need to call it lounges for that sort of stuff. So we relaunched it today. We made it really easy for you to get in. Just go to Substack, which is survivaldispatch.news. Click on SDENS up top. Click on the first article there. And there's links for each of the Signal channels. When you click on it, the admin team from each channel gets a notification. They approve you coming into the group. And so we've got a group in place now on the survival prepping channel that'll keep it on topic. And you still have the Guardians. It's carte blanche in there. Do whatever you want. The SDENS channel, which is emergency notifications. And we also have the Crusaders, which we have a 12-person news team, puts all kinds of news and intel in there. And before I forget, at midnight tonight, our 30% offer ends. So if you go to survivaldispatch.news, this is an eye test clearly, but when you go to sign up, there's a story across the top of the page. I'll show it to you right here, actually. And it says join the Guardians, and you get 30% off until midnight. So $52.49 a year gets you 2.5 months for free. It's less than $5 a month, or I think it's $5.59 a month with the 30% off the regular $7.99. Either way, you get access to all of the Signal channels. You get the SDENS alert. You get behind the scenes content and a whole bunch of other stuff that I won't bore you with. But what I do need to do is go to our conflicted question tonight. So conflictedthegame.com. These are 14 card decks set in a post-apocalyptic scenario. And 99% of the questions have some element of morality attached to them, hence the name conflicted. So here we go. Society has collapsed and Gordon is contemplating traveling a great distance. What would be the safest way to travel between large distances after the collapse of modern society? How would you go about it? So that's one of the very few examples where there's no element of, morality attached to it, but it's still a really good question. And we want to see your answers in the live chat. Hang out till the end and we'll give you our answers to that. So we're going to jump right into the the Command 11 sit rep. And before we do that, I'll just mention, once we're done the sit rep, the main topic tonight, which is the next episode in our Long War series, is all about the breakdown of our economy and economic pieces like banks and transitioning into a barter type economy. It's a really interesting topic and looking forward to having a conversation with the boys on it. But first one up here. So pardon my French, but this Eurofag, who's been essentially a lifetime UN bureaucrat, says to us, how dare you, blow up these drug cartel boats? It's unacceptable. And goes on to say how, we're out of line blowing up these drug cartel boats and blah, 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 blah. So I took it upon myself to reply directly back to him. And I said, his name's Volker Turk, by the way. I said, Volker Turk is an out-of-touch Eurofag. He thinks drug smugglers deserve more protection than the Americans killed by their illicit drugs, calling U.S. actions unacceptable while cartels flood our streets with poison is moral inversion. We should be laser focused on stopping the narco networks that are destroying families, not lectured by Geneva bureaucrats. Protect Americans first. So, and, GFY to this Eurofag. Randy, I'm going to come to you first for your comments. Who the hell do these guys think they are telling us what to do? They never heard of 1776?
I'm with John Curry over there. He just says he should take a boat ride. And I'm thinking, that's a pretty good idea.
Hey, that's page 3 of Khalid's new book.
That's right.
Put them on a boat. Send them to Venezuela on a boat.
Then I go back to, we know, and he's in Europe, but we know this country or Europe, either one, if those politicians and people like him weren't getting their cut, drugs wouldn't be the problem they are in our streets right now. We would have shut that off a long, long time ago. And then I go back to that video that was about 6 months back, right, where Marcon was there before he was ousted and a couple of other national leaders of other countries. And when the media got back there and weren't supposed to, they had this big bag of Coke on the freaking table.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I mean, no wonder they're upset about it. It's cutting down their bottom line and probably their free product.
That was an actual video. And when you watch it, they're asking Macron and the others, I can't remember who else in the room with them, questions. And he reaches out on the table and slowly slides the bag of cocaine back like nobody saw what he was doing. I mean,
and then he waited. He still held it there for, if you watch it, 2-3 more minutes, and then he finally slides it in his pocket where the other guy grabbed the spoon and something else. And I'm like, man, guys, seriously,
they don't hide who they are. They don't.
They don't at this point. They don't. And I think that they're all part of the occult and some kind of satanic worshiping thing going on. I think that they're all those global elites and those world leaders. I mean, let's just take a look at the self-portrait that, Numbnuts in England did of himself after the Queen died. And you put two of them together, there's clearly an entity painted in the middle. And the red that's used on that is pretty sickening in itself.
They're all it's twisted as all get out. I'm trying to remember, Randy, what was the name of the documentary, John something or other, from the early 1990s that keeps getting deleted, where the Committee of 300. Look up the Committee of 300. A lot of times as soon as it gets posted, it gets deleted. I have a hard copy.
I have it downloaded.
Same. Dr. John something or the early 1990s. It's unbelievable how prescient he was on the stuff he was saying then, 35 plus years ago. And it's all happened since then and still happening. It's incredible. Khalid, I mean, I know where your head's at on this, but tell the audience your thoughts on blowing up these narco boats.
Well, look, first off, this guy should look at his own backyard. I mean, look at the state Europe is in. And before you start pointing fingers at what America's doing, fix your own neighborhood. Europe is a mess. You have so many illegals. You have so much crime that you don't even know how to solve the problem yourself. And then you're turning around saying to the U.S. that you shouldn't be taking out drug boats. It's really simple. If you want us to stop, then stop the flow of drugs.
Well, a rhetorical question for you. What authority does the UN think they have over us?
None. The UN has no authority. Look,
zero.
The UN is a nice little administrative body. The UN is a nice little administrative body that can pass sanctions, pass resolutions, but they can't implement anything. So you can talk as much as you want. The whole failure of the United Nations is that all you can do is talk. You cannot force anyone to do anything.
So listen, first audience poll of the night. If you think that we should stop funding the UN and kick them out of our country, put a 1 in the live chat, whatever platform you're on. If you think we should just leave the UN as they are, put a 0 for zero action. But anyways, we'll move on to the next one here. This is kind of shocking, Cleet. You won't believe this. Newly released body cam footage shows an illegal alien driving a massive semi-truck who cannot speak English, with officers asking, "You don't understand English? What company do you work for?" The driver responds, "California." I'm going to play part of this, but I'm shocked, Khalid, that somebody said, "Do you know these guys might be hauling bombs and weapons in their trucks?"
How many times have we said this, Chris? How many times have we said it?
Shocking is all I have to say. We don't need to listen to the whole 1 minute, 25 seconds. This is freaking brutal. The question is, how many of these guys are on our roads right now? Nobody's got a hard number on that, but I'm sure it's pretty dang high.
We know it's at least 60,000, right?
Right, exactly, because that's what California's issued.
Yep. English? You do? Why did you park here? No good. Is there anybody else in the truck? Is there anybody else in the truck?
My company.
Your company. Okay, you don't understand English. Pants. Put your pants on.
What?
Put your pants on. Pants. Put some pants on. You don't understand English. What company do you work for?
Listen to this.
The company, California.
Hey,
your company's
makes
called
sense
California?
to him.
Yeah,
you don't understand me.
Anyway, we don't need to hear the rest of the commentary on this. But, I mean, since you're center stage, Khalid, honestly, how many do you think there are above and beyond the 60,000 that California's admitted to giving CDLs?
There's got to be a couple 100,000. There's got to be a couple 100,000, because you got to look at it from the point of view. Look, you've got California issuing them without any question at all. And then you've got all of these Indian companies who have bought trucking companies and are flying drivers in on H-1Bs and giving them. I mean, most of the accidents before this have all been Indian drivers. The problem I've got is that you've got two problems here. Number one, you've got Chinese drivers. You've got on number two, you've got Indian drivers. You don't know what they're actually in the country for. The fact that they cannot speak English and they're driving huge rigs, those things are weapons to begin with. And we've seen that with the accidents that have happened already in the US, that they are trouble waiting to happen. And we posited this thought months ago, that what if one of these trucks is loaded with an explosive? How much damage can that thing cause? And for someone to be saying today, what if these guys are carrying around bombs? Wow, you've just connected the dots as to why these idiots are in the country.
So just for our audience, you grew up here 25 years, 70s, 80s, into the 90s and stuff. And Florida was one of the first states to come out with real ID. And the process initially, I mean, it's got to be 15 years ago, at least, that we went through it. And the process was kind of arduous and stuff. But if you haven't seen these before, Khalid, I'll hold this over. You see the star in the top corner of my driver's license there?
Yep.
That means I'm an American citizen. The CDLs that New York is giving out to non-residents have that star on them. It's called Real ID. So they're not Americans, but their ID says they're Americans. And so that's all you need, by the way, to fly now. You have a real ID and you can fly. It's straight up insanity. Randy, I don't know if you have any comments to add to this or not, but I got a question for you, and just to get your thoughts on it. How much liability does the trucking companies have for hiring these guys? Because they got to know that this is bogus shit when they can't even speak the language. And how much culpability does California, New York, and these other states have if these guys come and kill somebody in our state, like happened last month on the turnpike, where the guy did a U-turn in the middle of the turnpike in South Florida and killed 3 people? I mean, somebody's got to be held accountable.
Well, before I get that, I was thinking to myself, that's exactly what I thought about anytime I've been pulled over by the cops, is I need to get undressed as fast as possible. You know what I I don't know what that guy was thinking, man. Maybe if I just get naked, he will leave me alone. Maybe that's what was going through his head. I don't know. But, yeah. So, you know what I mean? This is where accountability needs to be held because, as you just mentioned, we know California and New York probably too. Somebody already said Washington, Illinois. There's probably multiple states that are doing this, and they're all the blue states. And if they all gave 60,000 away, or roughly, there's probably at least a couple 100,000 of them out there, if not more. And when you take a look at that and the totality of it, how many lives has it already cost us? Quite a few already, and it's just getting started. And all the videos I watched, those dudes aren't even hitting the brakes when things go bad.
No,
they're just plowing right through.
The guy who killed 3 people on the turnpike here, Randy, got his license in California, and there was a random part of the test where they showed 12 signs. He only identified 1 properly on the test.
That's crazy. Well, look at that though. Even him, when he asked the guy, "Where do you work? Who do you work for?" The only thing he could think of is to say California, right? Because he was told somewhere along the line, "Get to California. They'll give you a license. They'll put you in a truck." So at some point, our DOJ, certainly from the national level, we know they're not in California. We know, right? The DOJ is not going to do a thing about it in California. But there has to be a process that we can hold their feet to the fire on that, because the states, and yes, the companies that hire these folks, you can't take a blanket and say, well, we didn't know they had a CDL, because if you go get a job as a truck driver, there is a process just like getting hired anywhere else. So they're not going to be able to take the plausible deniability that we didn't know when the guy can't even speak English or understand it. So yeah, I think, that's a no-brainer to me. And why it's just like everything else, nothing's happening about it. So everybody on the left, or the people that support that side, believe it's all a lie. This isn't a big deal. Yeah. And everybody else on the other side knows it is. But our media and our law enforcement and our states and our federal agencies aren't doing a damn thing about it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable is what it is. So moving on to the next one here. This is really good, actually. So American Papa Bear says, this is the most based take I have heard in a long time. So instead of reading, I'm going to play the video. It's 1 minute, 22 seconds long, but hats off to this lady.
The left is so funny. Workers who don't work, students who don't study, educators who don't educate, and politicians who cannot lead, so they buy votes instead. But somehow they figured it out. They create dependence and call it compassion. They create victims and call it justice. Create laziness and call it equality. And a bunch of dumb people fall for that. Yesterday, I made a video about how crazy it is that more than 40 million people here in America are relying on food stamps to get their basic groceries. And then as I did more research, I found out that in Brazil, my home country, we have more than 94 million people receiving some sort of benefit from the government. That's almost half of the country. And this scares me, really, because I know how things work in Brazil, and I know votes are completely bought. These people are going to vote for the ones who keep their checks coming in. And I feel like the same thing is happening now here in America. And now I'm going to say something that is controversial, but shouldn't be. I don't think these people should vote. Honestly, how can you vote freely when you're being bought? Welfare was supposed to be temporary help, but it's become a lifestyle. Worse than that, it's become a political strategy. And that is not compassion. That's control disguised as kindness.
Yeah, so, I mean, I love how she addressed that. I'll just quickly say, actually, let me tell just a quick anecdotal story, and then I'll come right back to you, Randy. We were on our way to Binghamton, New York, to pick up a bike. A buddy of mine bought a Street Glide up there. And we cut off on Virginia 17 at Fredericksburg to go catty corner over to I-81. Adds maybe 25 miles to the drive, but you avoid going through DC, right? And that Virginia 17 is a beautiful 4-lane road through rolling countryside, beautiful ranches, you name it. And as we're going through there was all kinds of chain gangs, cleaning up trash on the roadway. So we stopped eating one of these small podunk towns, real nice waitress. And my buddy Rob says, man, this is a beautiful part of the country. I love how clean everything is. We saw the chain gangs back down the road here, cleaning stuff up. They're just amazing. And she looks at them, she says, that's not a chain gang. She says, if you live in this county and you're on assistance, you get a hand up, not a hand out. You get a paycheck every other week. You go work for the roads department, the school department, you work for somebody and you get a paycheck. And those guys, that was no chain gang out there. And Rob and I were both like, and this is, I don't know, maybe like 2009 or 10 or something. We were both like, can you imagine if you tried to implement that on a national scale, the outrage from the nut cases on law? That's demeaning. You can't do that, crazy.
Well, she's right. You know what I mean? If she's right about all of that. And, it is odd that we find ourselves in this situation. You know what I mean? But I go back to back in 2020, and I can't remember his name. There's a black guy that has some sort of office or building in DC. He's a pretty famous guy. He's older, right? But very, very smart and intelligent individual. And he talked about how well the black community was doing before the 60s and welfare was a thing. And he talked about how many millionaires there were, how many black businesses, how many successful, you know what I mean? And you had very few that needed assistance. But you look at where we are with that today, and it's because those politicians have sold them a bill of goods. And, our parents always told us, right? Again, the old sayings have disappeared in today's time. Never accept the free lunch from a politician. Why? Because there is nothing free. They're giving you a free lunch. Believe me, he's taking it out of you 100 times on the side in ways that you can't see. It's no different than property taxes. And, we just need to go back, as I talked about last night. There's a reason why this country became a Christian country, how it formed, how it all began, and including between Jamestown and Plymouth. And both actually tried socialism in the beginning. Jamestown was a little more stubborn until they finally figured it out. But Plymouth found out real quick, so it's no different than today. And I agree with that. If you're going to be on government assistance, whether the state or federally, you should have a job that accounts for that, because in the Bible, it says, if you don't work, you don't eat. That is a biblical principle. So that is why we employed that in this country. That's why we became who we are. And we just need to get back to doing that. And people need to understand that, because, with the Bible being gone, God kicked out of everything, now that doesn't matter. Well, we're watching in real time why it actually does.
Yeah, absolutely. Khalid, I want to get your thoughts, and I know where you're going to go with this, but I want to hear you articulate it. I think she's got a pretty valid point when she says they're just buying votes at the end of the
day. She's 100% right. If you look at third world countries pay you for your vote. And in the last election cycle, I partnered with a politician and campaigned with him. And I kept telling people in rallies, I said, when you take money for your vote, you have no right to ask for your rights after that, because you've been purchased. Yeah. So if you take money from somebody to vote for them, you no longer have that right to vote. To take that right of vote away from these people that are on entitlements, that are getting welfare and not working for anything, that is, you're just building a system of idiots. And the useless idiots are always there, and they are abused and used by the political system. I mean, just look at November 5th, how the Democrats have announced they want to surround the White House and encamp until President Trump leaves office. That is an attitude that exists in the third world. It does not exist in the first world. The first world is vote your leader out. It is not surround the House, protest, demand, and overthrow the government. That doesn't happen in the real world. That happens in countries that are backwards and banana republics. And America, slowly, because of the Democrats, is becoming a banana republic.
Well, you weren't with us last night, but a friend of Charlie Kirk's recently was having a conversation with somebody, and this person said, your side needs to be more open to hearing other people's opinions. And he said, Charlie Kirk's one of my best friends, and I never, ever once saw him stop somebody from saying their piece, interrupting them. He would let them speak. and then he would, hit them with facts. And he said, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter if you're politically correct or not. It doesn't matter if you espouse something that the other side doesn't like or not. They want you dead no matter what.
Yep.
And I thought that was really well said. And I've been saying for a while, as you guys know, there's no reconciliation happening in America. It's either balkanization or civil war. Neither one of them is good. We don't want either one of them, but you can't, there's no reconciling with these people at the end of the day. It's like Nick Freitas said, two different cultures inhabiting the same geography, and they need to go. And I don't mean,
I'll give you a similarity. Like the third world struggles with religious versus liberal. You've got the same problem in the US. You've got entitlement versus working. And that's what's the same problem we have in Pakistan, where it's a religious right against the people who want to see the country develop. You've got the same thing in the US, where you've got people sitting on entitlement, taking money for free and going, well, I deserve it. I deserve it. I deserve it. Compared to those people that are working 12-hour days, paying their taxes so you can have that food on your table, and you're going to tell us what you deserve?
Well, I mean, let's explore this rabbit hole just because you drop the topic. What happens tomorrow when 42 million people don't get their EBTs, their SNAP benefits? What happens in your mind tomorrow?
Well, you're either going to start stealing or you're going to starve. I mean, you really don't, because you mentally don't have that ability to understand, well, maybe I can go get a job. Go work in a grocery store. Go work minimum wage someplace. At least you'll be earning something, right? If you're not getting the $2,000 that you used to get in food stamps or in welfare, at least you're getting $1,000. $1,000 still puts food on your table. You may not be eating steaks and having Pepsi and Coke on your table, but you'll at least have the amount of money to have the staple food that you need. But when you kick back and go, no, why should I work? Why should I work? Why should I work? You have taken, it's like Randy was saying, you've taken that base concept away that you must work to eat. I started earning at 10 years old. I was mowing lawns at 10 years old. I was shoveling snow at 10 years old for my own pocket money. That created a work ethic. That work ethic exists now at 56. I'm still working 18, 20 hours a day. And I'm building companies left and right because I was raised that way, that you must work to eat. Well, and people on entitlements don't have that.
Yeah, it's been quite a while now that there's a lot of studies that show Gen X is the economic engine of America and has been for a long time. Our generation puts in more hours than anybody else. There's outliers. There's always anecdotal examples, but nobody has the work ethic that Gen X does.
We were also taught that from an early age, and I don't think that's what's going on today. And, the saying is true that we've heard, America could survive an Obama. There's no doubt about that. We can survive Obama and what he did to a certain extent. What we can't survive is having a bigger class of freeloaders. Like, let's say that 42 million in the next 2 years or 4 years turns to 84 million and keeps going up. That's going to become a problem. And I get it. Like Kim said in the chat, and I'm disabled too. I'm completely jacked up, but there's still things I can do. I do have a retirement, that's coming in. So there is that, but I do other things to work. And there's always going to be those allowances for the people that have retired and gotten too old, or you're too disabled to actually do physical manual labor. But there's always somewhere you can contribute. That's a fact.
Yeah. 100%.
And that will never go away.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's reel this back, and we get a couple more before we get into the main topic. And I'm really actually looking forward to the main topic tonight because it's interesting stuff. The tagline up top is "Good people get tired of being good to ungrateful people." It's 2 minutes, 21 seconds. Probably won't listen to the whole thing, but this is another young lady who's got her shit together. And I agree with her. Listen to this one.
So what happened to the empathy and the sympathy in this country for the people, the hungry people, those who are hungry? Well, the empathy and sympathy died. It died. It died when we were told by the same people that we were grandma killers because we refused to wear a mask or refused to stay locked in our homes. It died when some of these same people came out and celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk loudly, blatantly. It died when over the summer it became all the rage on TikTok to take your thousands of dollars in food stamps while everybody else in the middle class and lower middle class was struggling, and show them all the junk and the energy drinks and the sodas that you could buy. Okay, and then rub it in their faces and then flip them all off and tell them you didn't fucking care that it's the taxpayers' money. You have the right to buy what you want. Give me that Kit Kat. It died. The empathy died. It died when the same people doxed us for coming out against the vaccines. Our empathy died. It died when you threatened the lives of ourselves and our families and our children simply because of who we voted for. Our empathy died. It died when you went on to call us racist because we didn't want a group of people burning down one of our cities. It died when you called us racist because we didn't want you tearing down our historical statues to put up ones of your own. Like, it died. We have no empathy for you. We have no sympathy for you. It died when you insisted on letting men who dressed as women come into women's spaces and make them feel unsafe. It died. You can't spend years and years and years demeaning people and calling them off at names and sending them death threats and then expect those same people to turn around and stand in solidarity with you because now you're not getting your food stamps. You're not getting your government handouts. You're not getting your welfare. And you want us to go to war with you. This is a lesson in fuck around and find out. This is a lesson in what goes around comes around. Empathy.
So I'll go ahead and stop it there. I mean, the point's well made, but Randy, you're center stage. I mean, everything that she said is right on the money. And yet, even though she explained that pretty she did a good job articulating it. The other side would still say she's full of shit and we're full of shit and that we're evil.
Well, it's what I've been saying, for many moons now. That side refuses to accept the truth. They just refuse to accept the truth, or even when they're defeated, they can't admit that they got defeated, whether it be their policies or their president or their king. They can't admit that, so they have to come up with some kind of alternate story of why that is and blame it on Trump, or right now it's Trump. We're going to blame everything on Trump, but then when you actually ask them to go farther into that, certainly the younger they get, they have no real understanding of why that is. Just that that's what everybody says. You ask them, why do you hate Trump? What has he done that's so bad? They can't come up with a list. And, it's this same thing. We've been telling them for years, everything that lady just said is exactly true and spot on, but they won't admit it because by admitting it, they have to admit that they're wrong and that they would have to say they're sorry. And they're not going to do that.
No,
they're clearly not going to do that for any reason.
True story. Khalid, how did we move from people being, having gratitude to being entitled? And is there any way to get back to where we were before, or have we crossed the proverbial Rubicon where there is no turning?
No, there's a way to do it. There's an easy way to do it. I remember when I was still in the U.S., and this is like 96, 97.
Hold on a second. You can't kill them, Khalid. You cannot.
No, I'm not going to kill him. I'm not going to kill him. I'm not going to kill him. But either you work for what you want, or you end up killing yourself. Because all of us from middle class all the way up have worked our way up. We have not gotten a handout. No one has given us favors to get to where we are. Chris, you and I have worked and built companies and companies and companies. Randy served in the armed forces. He's given the ultimate sacrifice and becoming disabled in that. We've all worked to get to where we are. Why should I give you something for sitting on your ass? And you're going to sit there and play with an Xbox that you got with my taxpayer money?
Yeah.
Why? The rule should be really simple. Whatever you want in handouts, you must work for either community service or get a job. If you won't do that, your entitlements are gone completely.
Do they have to get a haircut too, Khalid?
Yes, please. Normal hair. Get rid of all the piercings on the face.
And the pink and the
Look
purple.
like a normal human being.
I think Randy knew where I was going with that.
Oh, yeah.
George Thorogood, get a haircut and get a real job.
Yep. But Chris, the entitlement concept ends when you force them to have to work for it, because that foundation was laid for us when we were young, that you have to work. 7, 8, 9-year-old kids mowing lawns, delivering newspapers. Why were they doing that? Parents were teaching them, you have to work. No one gives you anything for free. What have you done now? You have said, well, there's OnlyFans, there's this, there's that, there's this. You can make money by sitting on the internet and running your mouth for no reason at all.
So we all did these things in our generation when we were younger, like cutting lawns to make money, so on and so forth. We have a cabin in North Georgia, middle of nowhere, top of a mountain, and it's a very conservative area. Get this, India. a girl who lived on the outskirts of Blairsville, Georgia. You can look it up. It's basically on the state line of Tennessee and North Carolina, like 10, 15 minutes each direction. She let her 12-year-old son walk to the store, which was 1 mile away, and the cops arrested her for child endangerment because she let her
Are you kidding?
1 mile to a store. And that's in a conservative rural location. So how are you going to, you know what I mean? Like, how do you get it to the point where we grew up with, yeah, let's go cut lawns, make extra money, whatever it takes.
But Chris, again, this is a mentality change that has to happen in the US. And one of my fears is this 9/11 attack, when it happens, it's going to take you from 2025 back to 1950, where you've got to start rebuilding with that culture, moving forward, because 2025 is not the culture you and I grew up with. None of the Gen Xers grew up in this culture.
Yeah.
We grew up understanding that food has to be put on the table. You have to work all day, because if you don't work, people are going to start calling you names like, what a useless human being. Why is he sitting on his ass all day? Why doesn't he have a job? You could do anything and earn money. But if you want to sit around and say, well, someone's going to give me this, someone's going to give me this, someone's going to give me this, you are no longer part of a functioning society. So what you have in America is you have a dysfunctional society and a functional society. The functional society is supporting the dysfunctional one. And that can only last so long. At some point, that wheel is going to break. And America's going to go, wait a minute, that's it. We're not paying for this stuff anymore.
Yeah, well, there's always a tipping point with everything. Just wanted to say thank you for the nice comment from Do Some Diff here. I wish I could work with you guys. I'm looking for work. You need an Arizona chapter. Jeff MD is in Arizona. Maybe you can hook up with him. Just wanted to mention something really quickly before we go to the last piece of the sit rep here. So my good friend Jason Wilson, who I've mentioned before, is a political operative. He's got this database that between himself and his clients, which are business clients as well as political campaigns, he's got some big people elected, like Andrew Bailey, the AG in Missouri, who's now in DC. And I would bet a dime to a dollar that he will replace Pam Bondi. But are you ready for this? Before we went into the election season last year, he calls me up and he says, Chris, he said, what do you think the number one topic is that we're getting when we're polling Americans? Like, what's the number one statement? I said, I don't know. He said, America, I don't recognize America. It's not the country I grew up in. The number one comment. And this is a database that he's been building for 10 years, many millions of dollars spent on this database. And everything he's ever steered us with has been spot on the money. I mean, that's just it's mind boggling to think of it that way, right? I mean, heck, I'm 56 years old too. I still get excited when I hear Rick Derringer, Real American, and Hulk Hogan. I mean, we grew up with that shit, man. We were proud of that stuff. But anyway, let's get into this last one here, because I know you've got some comments on it, Clede. Then we'll get into the bartering conversation. Another questionable terrorism arrest from the FBI is 2 teenagers were arrested in Michigan planning to carry out a Halloween terror attack. The FBI has provided no details of the potential attack or the individuals arrested by FBI agents from the Dearborn and Inkster field offices. I mean, this is where you grew up, Khalid. This is what you work in now. Give me your take on this bust.
All right, now listen. First off, the FBI has turned into an absolute joke under Kash Patel. It is the FBI for decades now has been the entrapment organization. They will create a crime so they can make an arrest.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you look at all of the terrorism arrests the Americans that the FBI has made, it's always been somebody in contact with an FBI agent. I don't know what guy wants to join ISIS by going through the FBI. I still haven't understood that yet. That how do you say that this guy was after terrorism when you presented yourself as an ISIS operative trying to recruit him, and then you say, well, let me get you weapons, let me get you this, let me get you this. And this is the second case in Dearborn. And the reason I bring it up as a second case, because the 19-year-old they caught in May is the guy that led him to these 2 people. He was allowed to roll.
You know why they're not saying who it is, though, right? Or who they are. We know why. Let's just call it.
Well, you have to wait, Randy. Look, I'm going to go 2 days backwards. Kash Patel going violent with Tulsi Gabbard
Yeah.
about running counterintelligence.
Yeah.
That's Tulsi's job. She's director of national intelligence. That's not the FBI's job. That's her job. Then you attack Joe Kent for investigating foreign ties into the Charlie Kirk murder. What you're trying to do is create your own fiefdom, that all law enforcement and investigation comes through the FBI and only the FBI. So does that mean we should shut down the CIA? Does that mean we should shut down DNI? And let the FBI, who has a glorious history of screw-ups left and right, screw-ups, and just recently, the Charlie Kirk murder, you have put 3,000 gag orders out so nobody can talk about what happened to Charlie. Yep. That is your level of investigation, because you want to manage the story you've put out, and you want everyone to follow that story no matter where it leads you. To me, that's not an investigative organization. To me, you guys should be sweeping the halls in DC rather than calling yourself the FBI, because the FBI back in our day was retired cops that knew how to investigate, could find a crime, do what they need to do to make that arrest. This FBI, since 2000 and maybe 10, has been an absolute, it's a political tool now.
So
which answers your question. You know, who would go to the FBI wanting to join ISIS? Yep. Well, let's just, whoever the FBI is recruiting for ISIS. We'll just put it.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% up to speed on this one, Khalid, but I read somewhere somebody's opinion was that the FBI was withholding critical details as far as like the nature of the plot and the suspects' identities. Is that true? Because I wasn't able to verify it. I ran out of time.
Look, Chris, it's a made-up plot. I will tell you right now, this is a made-up plot, because the FBI has never caught anyone in a terrorism plot. Never.
Except one they set up.
But that's not a terrorism plot.
No,
that,
I know.
That is
I
entrapment.
agree.
That is the true meaning of entrapment.
Yeah.
So for us, when the FBI says we've caught this big Halloween plot, wait a minute, you caught the plot, but you're not telling us what's going on. You didn't tell us how many people you arrested. Dearborn and Inkster are third-tier field officers for the FBI. How do they have the skill set to pick up a counterterrorism investigation? And you're telling me in Dearborn you only found these people connected to ISIS? Let me go roam through Dearborn and I'll point out every single one of them that's part of Al-Qaeda, part of ISIS, and I'm not part of the FBI.
You know, like all the one marches with those flags, because that's what it looks like over there.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything else to that, Randy, before we go into the main topic?
No, I would just agree. You know what I mean? The FBI isn't doing us any favors at this point. And Kash Patel, you know, everybody had great hopes, but clearly someone got to him. He is complicit or compromised or both. And we have no real federal law enforcement in this country as far as that mechanism that the FBI used to do, because all we've seen in the last 10 years is things that they have manufactured. And I am guarantee when it all comes out, a lot of these shooters that went around to schools and everywhere else were all manufactured through the FBI. I'd bet money on it. And certainly ever since we heard about the kidnapping case for the Michigan governor?
Yep.
And then the guy comes out and says, hey, well, they contacted me. They're the ones that gave me the money and told me to go do this. But now they're trying to put him on trial for that. So that's what we're looking at here. And, I don't know how you fix that. That's the sad part about it.
That's a good one.
There we go.
Great job.
That's their new name right there.
Yep. That's the comment of the night so far. Great job there.
I'll even take you backwards. If you go back to the between 2010 and 2020, the FBI was running convert a normal man into a radical Islamist. Yeah. They were picking up people, painting them into that idea that they wanted to commit a terror attack. They were giving them money. They were giving them guidance and understanding of the ideology. And then they go and arrest them and go, ha, we caught a terrorist. Dude, you created the terrorist yourself.
Yeah, no kidding. All righty then. So let's get into the main topic of the night here. It's an interesting one. We've touched on it several times over the years, but it's definitely, like I said, an interesting one. So just to set the stage here, this 144 episode series that Khalid and I wrote, you can watch any video in any order or not, and there's no loss of context. A lot of times when you release a video series, if somebody didn't catch the first episode, they won't watch the second and third. You don't have to worry about that with our long war series, because it's all predicated on one thing, and that's the intelligence that Khalid, Sarah, and others have brought to the table, that the Islamic Army has a plot for 9/11 2.0 to simultaneously attack 10 to 15 tier 2 cities in the United States, so 100,000 to 500,000 population. It starts with a bunch of small cells like Mumbai 2008, where you have 2, 3, 4, 5-man, cells that are attacking all these different soft targets simultaneously. And that's per city, by the way. So multiply that by 10 to 15 cities. The secondary attacks specifically target first responders. So the first attack ends up, drawing in the first responders. Then the bad guys are dressed up like first responders. We've had a ton of thefts of uniforms, including National Guard, in the past couple of years. And the secondary and tertiary attacks are worse than the first attack, because now they're taking out all of the people who've come to respond to this. And then all of those terrorists come back together. The sleeper cells come back together on the Tier 1 trauma center, and they siege it. And we do not have the resources to undo those sieges. You've got 4 FBI HRT teams across the country, so hostage rescue teams. They're not equipped to take back buildings where there are thousands of people being held hostage, plus employees as well. And realistically, the only guys that could do this, that could, end the siege without blowing the building up, which no American, commander is going to authorize, is Delta team would have to essentially siege it or surge it. And the Army Rangers would have to look after everything as it came running out of the buildings. We don't have enough to free 10 to 15 buildings, 10 to 15 Tier 1 trauma centers. So everything after that in this series is post 9/11 2.0 with that context. So tonight, it's the rise of the barter system, parallel economies, and essentially alternatives to what we currently have, which will end up collapsing. And it'll collapse pretty darn fast as well. So building barter networks, local currencies, which would probably be something tangible, silver, gold, those sort of things, and some organized trade of some point amongst people, because people bring different things to the table, of course. So go back to January of this year, the attack in New Orleans shows you that, these terrorists are active domestically. We let hundreds of thousands of them in under the Biden admin. Anybody who says to me, well, you guys are just spreading fear, really? How many terrorists do you think we let into the country, and you think that there's going to be no repercussions for that whatsoever? Everybody in the world who hates us is in our backyard now. And even if it is many hundreds of thousands, could be millions, but let's say it's a fraction of that. Let's say it's, 5,000 bad guys in the entire country. 10 guys killed hundreds of people in 60 hours in Mumbai and brought a city of 18 million to its knees. And that was 10 guys. So imagine what 5,000 people could do as far as damaging our system, damaging our country. And think of this, once this unfolds, nobody's going to work, nobody's sending their kids to school, supply chains break down, grocery stores have 3 days worth of food. You're going to see starting tomorrow what happens when people don't have food. Do not go anywhere near grocery stores tomorrow and pass by yourself. Do not go without being able to defend yourself. If you can't defend yourself, find somebody to go with you. When you come out of the grocery with a buggy full of groceries, make sure that you have somebody with you, because there are believable threats from people saying that they're going to accost you, they're going to take your groceries. Some of that will turn into even greater violence. People will end up shot. This is going to be a bad precursor to food riots coming post 9/11 2.0. So, buckle up for tomorrow in particular. So beyond
It's
that,
already started. I don't think tomorrow will be a big day, but I saw a video yesterday of a black woman that went up and stole a white woman came out with her groceries, and she just pulled right up and took all the groceries out of the basket and then took off. You know, so
Well-
that's what you're going to be looking at. And I've said it a long time. You think people are fighting over oil, and people don't get up and riot over one bad guy getting shot, even the black community.
Right.
But when you will see people get up and riot is over food and water.
100%. And a lot of this is going to depend on the state that you're in as well, by the way.
Absolutely.
So it's far less likely to happen here in the state of Florida. We have really, really strong laws when it comes to this stuff. Somebody posted something to our Guardians chat earlier today and said, what would you do in the situation with somebody's car who was being swarmed by other people? Well, that's an easy answer here in Florida because we have a law in the books that says specifically, this is in addition to stand your ground, by the way, that if your car is being swarmed by protesters, rioters, or whatever, you can put it to the floor.
Yep.
And if people get hurt, it's on them, not on you. And, you know, if anybody chooses to say, well, you know, you chose your, you know, vehicle, let's say, or your own assets, whatever the case is, over their life. No, other way around. They chose my assets over their own life, sort of thing. So anyway, ugly stuff for sure. But as this continues to unfold, this 9/11 2.0, it's the kickoff to frequent terrorist attacks across the country, just like Africa, the Middle East, etc. And the follow-on attacks will last for generations because they've infiltrated us with so many people. But it starts to cascade. It starts to go into things like power disruptions. It starts to turn into cell phone networks going down. There's all kinds of secondary things that come out of this. And right now, if nothing else, you should be looking at hardening your home security. So there's nothing that you can do to stop people from getting in your home. Just face it. If 100 people show up on your doorstep and they want to get into your house, doesn't matter what you do, they are going to penetrate that building. What it's all about is target hardening. So when the bad guys come and they look at your home and they see you've got dogs, you've got clear signs that you know, are a gun person, you've got, say, decorative bars on doors, windows, you've got security cameras, you've got motion activated lights, the list goes on and on and on. And they look at the neighbor as none of that, they will go to the neighbor. Target hardening
for sure
works.
Yep.
And it works really, really well. And I don't want to go too far down that just yet because I really want to get into the bartering stuff. But at the end of the day, we need to be prepared for, I couldn't think of anything better than the words I put in the brief, which is financial shock. You are going to see financial shock when all of this stuff starts to unfold. It's going to be worse in some, you know, locations than others. For example, I would not want to be in the Pacific Northwest tomorrow, and I certainly wouldn't want to be there post 9/11 2.0 with the wacky laws that they have there. All right, so we're going into the first segment here, and I'm almost done. I'm going to come to you first, Khalid. Is all of this stuff is predicated on coordinated terror, and that in turn causes this, you know, money meltdown, for lack of a better term. When Khalid talks about the command and control in Afghanistan, if you go back to 2008 Mumbai, what was happening is the brains of the operation in Afghanistan were watching things unfold on social media and on TV and other reports. And then they were contacting the 10 bad guys saying, hey, go here, go there, do this, do that. And the same infrastructure was put in place for 9/11 2.0. Khalid's guys and their army, by taking out significant portions of the command and control, have now caused a delay in 9/11 2.0 because there's nobody to give those orders. And somebody wrote to me and said, well, you know, there's not one recorded instance in history where taking out a leader at the command level ever cost somebody a war. And I replied back, you know, what I wanted to say, are you smoking crack? Yeah. But if you asked any German soldier from World War II in particular why they hated fighting us, they would all tell you the same thing. Typically, when you kill a leader from the other side, it could be at the squad level, it could be at the battalion level, or anywhere in between. That's the end of the confrontation, and that side ends up waving the white flag. We've never done that. When one of our leaders gets killed, we just get more pissed off, and somebody else steps up to the plate, fills that role, and we keep on going. So to suggest that taking commanders out is no reason to delay something, that's just pie in the sky thinking at the end of the day. So Khalid, I've kind of laid it all out there as far as the economic, slide that will happen from this, all of the panic. There will be riots. Food will be hard to come by. I mean, it's going to be one hell of a test of our resilience and fortitude here in America. But here's the question. I've asked it before, but it's worth revisiting tonight. What signs should everyday people be watching for that point to 9/11 2.0 being on the cusp?
Well, if you remember, we've talked about trigger events over and over. And everyone's always asking me, what trigger events are we looking for? I said, look, I can't define those trigger events because they're going to happen in such a way that they're not going to look like a terrorist event. The SNAP benefits ending, that's a trigger event. Whether you want to accept it or not, it does create that environment that you have unrest, you have people committing crimes, you have people openly armed that shouldn't be armed, people that don't know how to use a weapon, using weapons against people that shouldn't be using, have weapons used against them. We always said this would be a cascade. You would start from one domino and it would start flowing down. How many different dominoes have you seen fall so far? Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
That was one domino. We saw the left kick up. We saw the school shootings happen. That was another domino. Now you got the SNAP benefits ending. That's another domino. These are all things that bring the U.S. to the point where it's easy to carry out an attack because there's so much unrest. There's so many people crowded into the same places that carrying out an attack and getting that body count that you want, because terrorists want body count, it gives you the opportunity to do so. So when you talk about trigger events, you're looking at things that are going to cause unrest. In my mind, when I look at the US right now, I can see 5. 1, your CDL licenses, that's a trigger, right? That's a trigger. You need to be watching who's driving those vehicles. Chinese in the country, Muslims in the country, Indians in the country that don't speak your language, but have access to a vehicle that can do massive damage. Think of the lone wolf attacks where people drive cars or trucks into a crowd of people. How much damage can you do on an interstate when you take a semi and just go right down one lane and just hit every car in the way? The amount of damage you can cause. These are things that, this is level 1. Level 2, the people, and I've said this before, when you're around people that are speaking a foreign language, and when you walk past them and they stop talking, that's something you need to pay attention to. Why? I don't understand that language. And you know I don't understand that language. Why'd you stop talking? You have that fear in your mind that if I keep talking, they may understand what I'm saying. It may give something up. That's a huge red flag. People in places they don't belong. People in places that don't belong. Now, be really clear on this. A lot of white Americans have converted to Islam. They have not converted to the Islam of peace. They have converted to the Islam of radicalism. They want to do things that will cause harm to the country because they no longer identify with the Christian ideology, which is what America was built on. Those are people that these terrorists are using, because the biggest goal of Osama bin Laden was to convert white people with American passports. Once you had them, they blend into the public without anyone even noticing. The brown guy gets picked off really quick. The Muslim guy gets picked off really quick. The white guy doesn't. And when you see white people in places where they don't belong, look at the dress. And when I say don't belong, I'm not saying, well, he doesn't seem like he belongs here. Look how he's dressed. He comes to for example, you have a guy come to a wedding, standing outside of a church where there's a wedding going on, and he's dressed in flip-flops and shorts and a t-shirt. He obviously doesn't belong there. Why is he standing there? What's he looking for? What's he watching? Pay attention to dress. Pay attention to language. Pay attention to groups of people. When you see people starting to congregate in one place and start pointing at things, talking about things while they're pointing at them, start paying attention to them, because you don't understand what their train of thought is. If I were to stand in the middle of Times Square with 6 people and start pointing at different buildings, I guarantee you an NYPD cop would come over and ask me, what are you pointing at? What's your business here? You're not doing any shopping. You're not eating anything. What are you doing standing here with 6 guys pointing at different buildings? What is your intention in that? this is something that we have forgotten as an American people. That fear of political correctness stops us from saying something.
Yeah.
We are now at the point where if you're not saying anything, you're slitting your own throat. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but you need to be hyper vigilant. You need to learn what situational awareness means. Get away. When I'm on the market, I don't even touch my mobile phone. I don't touch it because I'm looking around. There's threats everywhere. The same thing exists in America, but people are not paying attention to it because you're stuck in that mobile phone.
Weapons of mass distraction.
Yep.
So, Randy, one question for you. What is a simple prep that families can take today to shield them against instant financial collapse? You know, when the financial structure in America takes a hit and you get to the point where people don't want to take a dollar bill from you because it's not worth anything at that point in time and they want something tangible. What's a prep that you can start working on today to protect yourself against that collapse?
Well, as we talked about, precious metals are one of the things that people can protect themselves from. The problem is if you don't have the precious metals in your home and they're in the bank or you bought them or somebody else, you invested in them and they have them somewhere, those aren't going to do you any good. You know what I mean? So you would have precious metals or anything of value, right? Because we've all talked about is there will be an alternative market that pops up. When you go through the Q course, and you're learning to become a Green Beret, one of the big things that they lean on through all the little iterations, and they teach you how to use the black market, right? Because the black market's here in the United States, it's in every country in the world, it's everywhere. And it's one of the things, certainly out of this country, when we go into other countries, we deal with on a regular basis. Why is that? Because you can barter, you can trade things, you can get things on the down low and off the system. And those kinds of things, like I'm not a big drinker, but anymore, I hardly drink at all, but I've got a huge liquor cabinet up there. And when that point in time comes, I understand how valuable that alcohol is going to be. It's the same thing when we talked about the one question that was a couple of months back that talked about drugs. You know what I mean? Now, I don't advocate getting drugs, but in that one question, it came and said, would you trade them at this moment? And if there was a reason to do it in a value, then yes, I probably would, because you're in a survival situation. You don't get to decide now like we can now. Like, I'm not going to have a part of that because we know what that's all about. But trust me, folks, who do you think is going to be running these black markets and these things that are off the books? It's going to be criminals. That's a fact. And so, again, it's one of the things they teach Green Berets and intelligence guys is how to use the black market. And that reason is because there's always and going to be one, and there has always been one. So anything you can save up in your house that will be of value afterwards, gosh, even tobacco products.
Yeah.
I go back to my deployment and I didn't smoke or dip at that point. But if anybody would have told me what was going to happen, I would have brought 2 big old black tack boxes full of tobacco products because of the money I personally could have made off of them at that point. So it's that is what you need to be looking at, because money and even precious metals are only going to do you so good. Why? Because the moment you show somebody you have some gold or silver or something else, you have exposed yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move into segment number 2 and talk about some crises that have sparked barter booms, for lack of a better term, in the past. So during the Great Depression, people ditched, the dollar for direct swaps on everything, whether it was eggs, tools, labor. All of that happened during the Great Depression, and it carried on that way for quite some time. But fast forward all the way to 2001 in Argentina, when they had a complete meltdown. The banks locked up, pesos vanished overnight. Millions of people had to invent some way of getting what they needed, trading for whatever they needed. Barter clubs sprung up, which is an interesting concept. And that was the only way that the masses were able to feed themselves, is they traded for everything. And if you look at these blow-ups, we can learn something from all of them, as far as what's the adage? He who forgets history is doomed to repeat its mistakes.
Yep.
Well, you're also doomed to not repeat the good stuff if you don't pay attention to what happened. So at the end of the day, if the financial system fails, you actually have to start thinking in small terms, small things, that you can go from on the rails, or on the ropes, I should say, and then, to, let's say, successful ingenuity, for lack of a better term. And, we're pretty resilient, pretty, let's say, crafty, people here in America when it comes to figuring this sort of shit out. But Khalid, I know obviously none of us were alive during the Great Depression, but are there any lessons that strike you from the Great Depression that we can learn from today, if there's a financial collapse caused by 9/11 2.0, or the follow-on attacks of 9/11 2.0, or some other calamity that we're not even thinking about?
Well, look, when you're talking about the Great Depression, or you're talking about any point where America or any country in the world has gone through a struggle, you have to remember there were two things at that time that worked. One, people who had skills were very successful.
Yep.
Whether you could fix something, whether you could build something, you were very successful in trading for whatever you needed. Number two, people who could garden. When you can build a garden of your own and have food of your own, you can trade that off for skills, or you can trade that off for people to do things. I understand buying stuff, but there's a lot of things you can do for free. You take a section of your lawn or a bunch of pots and start planting vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, green peppers, stuff that you can freeze and keep for a while. That ends up as being almost like money, because certain things you're going to need. And when you're not thinking from that point of view, you're going to go in handicapped. And it's the one thing we've said over and over again. Start thinking from the point of view of the 1950s. How did the world operate in the 50s? Neighbors, everyone lent a hand to everyone else. Everyone worked together. That's how communities survived. That's how America thrived. If you come back to that mentality and start going, okay, sure, it's 2025, but I'm going to start working from that mentality. I should have my own garden. I should tell my neighbors as well to plant gardens.
Yep.
And scatter your vegetables. I'm growing these 3 vegetables. You grow these 3 vegetables. You grow these 3 vegetables. So not one person has everything. Everyone has something different, so everyone can share amongst themselves. Start building a skill base. It's not difficult to learn how to do something. You've got time. Learn how to fix a car. Learn how to build a fence. Learn how to paint. Learn how to fix electricity. Those are things you can learn that you can trade off when the economy collapses. Because it's like Randy was saying, that once you show you have money, you become a target. People will come after you for it, and you'll have more trouble than you would if you didn't ever show that. So that's a good thing to keep in the background, that if, God forbid, I need to get capital in some way, you have those precious metals. But build up a trade system. Get medicines, basic medicines, pain, flu, cold, cough,
Yep.
those kinds of medicines, because people are going to need them. When you have those things, you can say, listen, I need the electricity fixed in my house. Your daughter is ill. She's got a fever. Here's fever medicine. Come fix the electricity at my place. It's a nice, quick trade-off. It's how, and I'm speaking on this from a culture that operates that way. Pakistan works on a barter system. We have a huge black economy that runs in Pakistan, much bigger than our white economy is. But all of that economy runs on this system, that I give you something to get something. And it may be a skill that I haven't. We've built websites for people that didn't have money, but they had something we wanted, but they didn't have the money. So he said, okay, we'll build you a website. You do this for us. There are so many different trade-offs if you have skills. If you don't have skills, you're half out of the game already.
Well, that actually is a perfect setup for my next question for Randy, which I didn't put in the brief. I meant to, but I forgot to do it. But before I do that, I've been making a list on the side here of some things that you can barter with. Food is a given. If you have extra food that you can barter, it's easy enough to do that, not disclose all of the food you have. And you shouldn't be keeping all your food in one place as it is. But here's one for you. stock up on products like Sawyer minis, Sawyer water filters. They will be worth like a lot of money in the future because there's not going to be a lot of ways to purify and clean water. And the Sawyer products, as far as I'm concerned, we've tested them all, are the best of the best, pardon me. Medical supplies, like Clede mentioned, tools, knives and tools. I'm not trading guns or ammo for anything, but I will trade knives and tools for stuff. Vices, just because I'm a bad coffee addict. So in addition to booze and tobacco and stuff like that, coffee and chocolate are two things that people will love. Another thing, from as far as goods are concerned, would be simple things like fishing supplies. You could have a bunch of that stuff stocked up, nobody knows about it. You say, hey, I got this fishing kit, do you want to trade for it? And that person can go and potentially feed themselves. But here's my question for you, Randy. So as a business development guy, my entire career, I've always been focused on, it's better to be the master of one than the master of none. So businesses that are truly successful don't try to be all things to all people. Okay. There's a super famous essay. I'm going to give you the synopsis of it by Isaiah Bryant, called The Hedgehog and the Fox. And there's a great comparison to small businesses. Okay. So nobody's ever seen a fat fox. Fat foxes don't exist. Foxes are not apex predators. They're very opportunistic. They will chase every meal that runs in front of them, but they only get a small percentage of them. Hence the reason that they're small and, scraggly looking. Most small business owners fall into that category. Every time an opportunity comes in front of them, they chase the opportunity. And you put everything in because let's say it's a good meal, it's a good win. But then everything in life comes to an end. So that job, that contract, whatever, comes to an end. And what happens now, those people who've been up here as self-employed all of a sudden go down here because we've been so invested in making this thing happen. We haven't planted anything for what happens after that. So the flip side of it is the hedgehog. There's no such thing as a skinny hedgehog. Hedgehogs, they gather up grubs, they take them back to the den. Everybody gets fat and happy. They do one thing and one thing only. Okay. So from a business perspective, when you find a niche that's an inch wide and a mile deep, you can make an awful lot of money. Prime example, Carnivalt. Nobody but these guys has figured out how to take meat that's not cooked and freeze dry it. Everybody else cooks it first, then they freeze dry it. Because when you take raw meat, the fat in it turns to jelly, and that in turn will spoil the meat after you put it in a Mylar bag with an O2 absorber sort of thing. That's why this company's doing so well. They found a niche and they're mining the crap out of it. So with those things being said, from a business perspective, Randy, I don't know if there's a right answer or not to this, but I was thinking about it earlier. When you are in a barter economy, you're in a Teotihuacan situation, which stands for the end of the world as we know it. Is it better to be the master of one or to be the master of none? So jack of all trades versus specialist, which one do you think bodes better for this type of situation?
Well, without a doubt, I think it's the more universal one, right? If you have a niche and it's one thing and that thing is in complete demand, then you won't have any problems, right? But the moment it does, you're in deep shit, just like everybody else. So as we've already mentioned before, it's going to be the person that is able to fix things. He's that can do a lot of different things, or like yourself, has a lot of connections where they can put things together. The person that can find things, person that can fix things, and an array of things. And both of those, I think in this type of situation, does much better than the person that just has one skill. Because again, that skill's good as long as it's going, but the moment anything shifts or changes, you're totally screwed. You have no backup plan. And that is what it gets to. You have to have pace, have 4 or 5 plans. Don't just have one plan, because nothing is 100% unless it's made to be, and nothing ever goes according to plan. It's why you must have other plans. So when your plan goes to shit, you're not sitting there fumbling, trying to figure out what you're going to do, because you already got several other plans to go with. It's the same concept.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you because, you know, when the economy is just a normal economy, we don't have any of these extraneous emergencies going on. I'm pretty resolute in saying you're better off being a niche guy, niche
Yep.
business, because you can make a lot of money by being really, really good at something that few people are into. But in this type of scenario, I agree with you. When the shit hits the fan and you have to have something to trade, it may not always be the same thing. Khalid, here's an interesting number for you, by the way. And this number is a couple years old, so I'm not sure where it is now, but it came about. I don't know if you remember this, but the Biden USDA had on paper that they were going to pursue you had to have a license for your own garden in your backyard.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And the reason they were doing that is because they can't tax you on it right now. And they wanted to tax you for anything that could be sustainable for you, right? That could make you sustainable. At the end of World War II, 1945, over 50% of American households got 100% of their fruit and vegetables from their backyard garden. That number, when the Biden USDA tried to pull that shit, was sub 1%. It's a very, very low number. I am not an expert in that. My wife is. I can tell you right now, if you go buy a big old bucket full of all these types of seeds and so on and so forth, you won't live long enough to take advantage of that if you don't start learning how to do it right now. As when Cleve was talking about, you specialize in this and so on and so forth. There's another method, and it's not random. You have to pick the right plants, but you take several different species of plants like vegetables and you put them beside each other. Then you do another pile and another pile, and another pile, and they complement each other from the perspective of how good the soil is. One's regenerating what the other one's taking, so on and so forth. There's a technical term for it that escapes me, but it's an interesting way to go. But let's get into segment number 3. So we're getting into this stage, let's say, where you got to kickstart a barter network. Clearly it has to be close to home because of all these things that are going on. So you're going to want to start by mapping out your neighborhood. Who has hidden talents? The mechanic down the road, the carpenter, who fixes bikes, again, who's a gardener, for example, who already has gardens that you can potentially barter with and trade with. But you got to have a map of all of that kind of stuff. And I don't mean a map like, go here, go there, but basically, hey, this person can offer this, that, and the other thing, and share that information amongst the neighbors who are now going to barter. And, at that point, you can probably assume that most of the technology stuff will be crippled at best. So internet, cloud-based, maybe even devices are not functioning because networks are down, so on and so forth. So you have to have a way to keep track of all this stuff, some sort of ledger that keeps track of who's got what and how much of this it takes to trade for that, so on and so forth. And then at the end of the day, the glue is kind of like gluing the community together, gluing the barter system together is just something you just got to do. The more you get into it, the better everybody gets at it, the more fair it should be. Doesn't mean it will be, but it should be. And that's when you can actually reach some level of sustainability based on bartering and trading. And I guess, you live in a different part of the world now, Khalid, and we're looking forward to you coming back this way. But give me some thoughts on when the shit hits the fan over there. You guys have had more than your fair share of calamities. If you don't know people, how do you figure it out? How do you ferret it out? Like, who's good at what without, causing, I don't know, maybe some confrontation because somebody's like, why are you asking me these questions? How do you figure out who's got what to bring to the table?
Well, one of the biggest advantages of living in a third world country is everyone is about community here. I mean, you know all of your neighbors. We're still operating with the 1950s, 1960s American model in this part of the world. Yeah, when you go to the urban centers, Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, people don't know their next door neighbor. And that's going to be the biggest problem when shit hits the fan in Pakistan. We've seen it. When you run out of water, like Karachi, for example, it's a city of 20 million. They don't have enough water in the city to be able to give every home water. So everyone has these huge tanks built underneath their houses. They are buying tankers of water where you don't know if the salt how bad the salt content is. You don't know if that's actually clean water or not because you haven't done the work to figure out whether it is or not. when I lived in Karachi, I spent 12 years in Karachi. The thing I learned is a glass of water from a tanker before you buy the whole tanker will tell you a lot. Take a quick sip, you'll figure out if it's clean or not. We've had people lose hair because of bad tankers, where hair has fallen out because there was so much sodium in the water that it made their hair fall out. When you look at economies like this, community is the most important thing. And it's why I keep repeating it, that start talking to people from now. Start having barbecues now. Start getting to know people, because the more you get to know people, the more you talk to them, the more general questions you can ask. So I see you've got an old car. How do you get that fixed? Where do you get the parts for that? It's a very general question, but you find out if he's got mechanic skills or not. Some guy just put up a fence someplace. Hey, I saw you put up that fence. How much does that cost you to put together? Very general question. But you lead to an answer where you find out if there's a skill or not. When you end up in a shit hits the fan position where you're going, uh-oh, now I need to figure out who knows what. Everybody's already closed their doors. Everybody's, surrounded their family because they don't trust anyone anyway.
Yeah.
When you come and knock at that door and you start asking questions, they're obviously going to go, wait a minute, what's he asking this stuff for?
Good point.
You've got lead time right now. Right now is the time when you sit down and you get your neighbors together. Hey, we're having a neighborhood barbecue. Let's everyone get together. And you start talking to people and everyone starts sharing. While you're sharing, take simple notes, mental note. Chris does this. Randy does this. And you have a nice list of things they can do. At the same time, you tell them what value add you bring to the table. When you start that conversation, those connections start to build. But if you wait until shit hits the fan, no one's going to trust you to begin with, because everyone's going to look at you from, he wants something. That's why he's asking these questions.
Yeah, that's interesting. You would say that, Cleve. Let me see if I can show you this. So I don't have Alzheimer's, but I get Sometimes. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget. And this is, I don't know, maybe the 10th book, as you can see, every single page, both sides. I write everything down when we're on the air. So this is about 3 months worth of podcasts in this particular book. Then I have a filing thing that I store it away. You can see the date. Check it out. It'll tell you what the date is, what the topic was, all that sort of stuff. And then I have this in my filing cabinet down here, and I can refer back to it. But again, I don't have Alzheimer's. I got Sometimes. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget. And I write everything down, because what you're describing when you're having those conversations, how the hell are you going to remember all of that the next day? So yeah, good advice there. Randy, I got a really interesting question, for lack of a better term, for you. How can people right now learn bartering skills that people who have no skills, they've never negotiated, they've never, had to try and, horse trade, all of those sort of things? Maybe start with this. Like, let me just throw a couple quick things out there. Number one, don't be afraid to walk away. So in other words, if you've got a conversation going with somebody and the deal doesn't sound good to you, say, yeah, I can't do that. Walk away. Like, know the value of what you have, what you bring to the table. But what other skills would you counsel people today to practice or brush up on or figure out, learn from somebody else, so that they can actually barter in this type of scenario without losing their dang shirt?
Well, I saw somebody in the chat said, get some Monopoly money and practice with your friends. That's probably not a very bad idea right there.
That's interesting.
Playing some board games and doing that. It was funny. It's been some years, but when I was in retail, I used to sell men's suits, right? Both at Macy's and the Men's Warehouse. And it was, what was odd to me is when you had foreigners or people like even Khalid, mostly they would be of the Middle Eastern descent or Pakistani or Indians. And I mean, like from India, the Dot Indians.
We negotiate.
They always came in when you're trying to sell them a suit. They're trying to barter with you on getting the price lower. And I'm like, for the first of all, I didn't understand it. But then there was a manager around, been around a long time. And he basically said, look, these are foreigners that come from other countries. And other countries still do that. Yeah. Like when you go into retail, you go to the market, you're bartering with all those folks. And we don't do that here, and that is part of the problem. But you already hit the crux to the subject, right? And the two biggest things are know your value or the value of what you have, and don't be afraid to walk away if it doesn't match up. That's the big one right there, where people end up, they think that they still have to go and get something, and then they end up giving too much away. And, you know, in this type of situation, you're not going to be able to make a lot of mistakes like that. It's just, you're not going to have that opportunity. So practicing now, even, I don't know about going, I don't know if it's going to work at the grocery store, but you know, any of the other retailers that you go in, try bartering with them a little bit, because what I also found out, it was amazing, you know, how much latitude the managers actually had if they wanted to. If they didn't like the person or they didn't want to, you're not getting anything out of them. But if you're an affable, likable person, it's amazing how much you can get out of that manager on any of these, even in clothing stores, of getting some sort of discount out of them if you actually barter for it. So I would just say start practicing it now, because it's a skill that we lost in this country at least a century ago.
Yeah,
you guys actually still do it. When you guys are buying cars, you do it there. You never pay sticker price out.
Yeah, that's right. That's the only place.
You never barter anywhere else. That's the thing that always surprised me, that you can barter here, but you go to a farmer's market, you go to flea markets, and you have no idea how to do it then.
The car thing is all smoke and mirrors. It's all bullshit. They always get their trick stuff that they throw in there to get their pound of flesh. But I want to add to this that you got to learn how to negotiate, barter, and trade with respect for the other side. And there's a reason I say that. So from a business perspective, everybody sitting at the table has to eat. Okay. And I'll give you a great example from when I acquired the assets to Survival Dispatch. So we had $100,000 website. It was a Magento 2 website, which is a very complex e-commerce website that had 58,000 SKUs from multiple distributors across the country, RSR, Sports South, Chattanooga Shooting Supplies, like the big boys that do billions of dollars a year in sales. Okay, so the manufacturer of a product sets what's called a MAP price. The MAP price is the lowest price that a retailer can offer, okay? So the manufacturer is making their money by selling to the distributor. The distributor likes to bellyache that they may have no margin, but their terms of service are this thick if you printed it out. And every single order, there's some crazy clause where like, well, you know, it's $100 order. And they're like, yeah, well, it's going to be another $50 because of this clause or that clause. So they get their pound of flesh. The customer, they're sitting at the table, they get to eat because it's a race to the bottom. Every e-com retailer is going to the MAP price, which is the lowest that they can go. So now you end up with the e-com retailer literally starving to death. You have to deal with all the chargebacks, all the returns. You have to do everything. And we did it for 1 year, and Cindy and I had a conversation and said, screw this. Like, there were days, I kid you not, where she processed thousands of dollars of sales and we made 0%. We were working for free while everybody else is making money. And I'm not asking anybody to have any sympathy or anything. We figured it out. You know, we have eyeballs, and, you know, we can get eyeballs for companies that they can't get eyeballs from. CommiTube, for example, because it's a banned product, like ammunition, stuff like that. But anyway, at the end of the day, just keep this in the back of your mind. If you're not used to negotiating, everybody has to win. You can't have one guy who walks away from the table getting screwed. And the next part to that is perception is reality when you're doing these types of deals. If I have a truck that's worth $10,000 and I sell it to Randy for $20,000 and he thinks he got a great deal, he got a great deal. Perception's reality. If I have a truck that's worth $20,000 and I sell it to Randy for $10,000 and he thinks he got screwed, he got screwed, because perception is reality. But everybody at the table has to eat, period. So these people who barter and trade and they want to screw the other person, that's not sustainable. You know what? That person will never work with you ever again. You know, and then you're going to go to them to barter for something that only they have. And they're like, yeah, man, I'm not doing it. Last time, you know, you didn't even kiss me when you were raping me, sort of thing. So anyway, I'll get that out of the way. And I'm going to skip the midstream promotions for stuff tonight because I want to get wrapped up on these the important main topic. So segment number 4 would be going one step beyond just a typical barter system and rolling out local currencies, like things that could actually, stick. So you're talking about the beginnings of things like coins. Coins always go over better at the end of the day. And I know a bunch of people are into gold and silver and all that stuff. And the price of gold may be X, but if it's in the coin, it's X plus plus. And they've always told me, they've said, if you're going to invest in that stuff, try to get some coins mixed in there as well. I don't know that we would see the fiat dollar come back anytime soon. So I personally think that coins that are made out of any type of, precious metal or kind of precious metal like copper, is a way to go. But the other thing is that if you do have people who, have ledgers, they're like bookkeepers, all that sort of stuff, you can kind of start to figure out, okay, well, a dozen eggs is going to cost you X in this, Y in that sort of thing. And you're really building an economy from scratch that goes beyond just a simple barter system. But it's something just like we went through, from the time this country was founded, is that you're constantly tweaking the setup of your economy, what's worth what to other people. And so let me just bring it down to the lowest common denominator. And I'm going to go to you first, Khalid. How do you nail down some sort of fair schedule of values, for lack of a better term, where people know that if they have X, that they can get Y in exchange for it? Again, we're talking about rebuilding society completely from an economic standpoint. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. And people probably hate the government even more than they do right now. How do you come up with something like this? Or is it just bullshit and you screw it? Just keep bartering hard goods for hard goods.
No, the way we did it here is we built local marketplaces.
Okay.
So if you're looking for carpenters, all the carpenters in one place. There's one booker that handles all the carpenters.
Interesting.
If you're looking for electronic work, there's one booker that handles all electrical work. If you're looking for groceries, there is one market where all the groceries are. Yes, there are periphery markets in every community. They're smaller, but they're significantly more expensive than the main market is.
Is that still go on today?
That's how Pakistan operates today.
Interesting.
We have one vegetable market, which has meat sellers, lamb sellers, chicken sellers, and vegetables all the way down the strip, where you're walking through going, how much is a kilo of tomatoes? No, that's too much. No. How much is it with you? And you've got guys back and forth that are arguing. You've got two separate dealers of vegetables, which are in earshot of each other, arguing to trying to win a customer. And it's the system we have here is the system you've got to build there.
Well, just curious, how much of that breaks down to reputation building?
All of it. All of it.
Dive into that for a second. I'm curious. It's an interesting topic.
When I buy, when I go out and buy vegetables, there's only 3 vegetable dealers that I'll buy from, because I've bought from many different ones before. I figured out that who's selling old vegetables, who's selling vegetables that will spoil quickly, who's selling meat that is older than what they actually say it is. Like when you live in an economy like Pakistan, where every day cows are being butchered in the morning, you have fresh meat every day, but you have hustlers that have big freezers. They butcher 2 cows and put them in the freezer. In the morning, they pull it out and they hang it up and they say it's fresh. So you learn by moving through that. Okay, this guy you don't buy this from. This guy you don't buy this from. This guy you don't buy this from. The other thing we have here in Pakistan is when you talk about spices, black pepper, turmeric, all of this, you buy that from a dealer. They've got bags full of turmeric. You tell them, I want a kilo of turmeric. They grind it right in front of you. They put it into a grinder and they grind it right in front of you. So everything in Pakistan is based on a trust relationship. I trust your product, so I buy from you. Okay. I don't trust your product, and I tell 100 people, don't buy vegetables from him. Don't buy spices from him. Don't buy beef from him. Don't buy chicken from him. In Pakistan, there's a new system that started probably about 2-3 years old now in the small village communities, where people are buying frozen chicken. That is something that people did not do in the past, because when we don't see you kill the chicken, the live chicken is not killed in front of us, we don't know how fresh it is. So when you're buying frozen chicken, the first question in your mind is, okay, when was this packaged? Because I don't know how long it'll survive after, by the time I get it home, defrost a little bit, cook that, find out it tastes bad. you can't take back 5 kilos of chicken.
Right.
But when you buy a fresh one, you know exactly what you're getting. When you're buying in a barter system, trust is the biggest factor. Trust is the biggest factor when you're buying things. Because when you're in that market, someone gives you something bad, you automatically go, don't trust that guy again.
Yeah.
Or if I come back to this market, don't bring that guy to do the work for me. Don't buy from this person. Don't ask this guy to do this. Don't ask this guy to do this.
Do those people you like disappear at some point, Khalid, because their reputation precedes them, and they have to move on to new pasture where they can.
They move to other cities. They like when you talk about major cities, there's I'd say probably every 10,000 homes there is a market like this.
Okay.
And in that market, every morning, it's really cool when you go out in the morning, like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, you go out, and all of these carpenters are sitting on the side of the road. And you walk up and you say, okay, this is what I need to do. And 50 carpenters will come to you and say, I'll do it for this much. I'll do it for this much. I'll do it. And you start negotiating right there. And you make your price right from there. When you get somebody who doesn't work, who doesn't deliver the goods, whether it be fruit, vegetable, meat, services, they end up being sidelined. And as they get sidelined, they get pushed out to another community. Their reputation reaches them in that community as well. That he used to be in this community, he did these things here, don't work with him there. So you end up having to transfer cities as well. It's what you do affects you throughout the process. That's how Pakistan is built. People know who you are. People would, like, for example, if I were to hire you, I'm going to ask you where you're from. Are you from my community, or have you come from another community to work here? If you've come from another community, the ears automatically stand up. You go, wait a minute. Why is he not working in his own community?
Yeah, makes sense. So, Randy, I don't even know if it's still there or not. Is Traders Village still in Grand Prairie?
I don't know either. I have not been out there in such a long time. I couldn't tell you, honestly.
At one point in time, it was the largest flea market in the state of Texas. And I knew a guy who had a contract with this ASTM testing lab where they tested glass for hurricanes and those sort of things, right? So they would put them in this lab. It was on the northwest corner of Fort Worth, and they would hit it with high pressure water. But at the end, they would do destructive testing, and they would take these big, heavy bags, and they'd go back X amount of feet and calculate that was the equivalent of being hit with whatever in a hurricane, blah, 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 blah. So they had these dumpsters that were packed full of busted up tempered glass. And I knew this guy. He used to go there, and he took a few Mexicans with him. You could pick them up at Cashway or Home Depot back in the day. They'd work all day for $10.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And he would have them bag up the broken tempered glass. And then he would go to Traders Village, and he would trade people bags of broken up tempered glass for whatever they had. Because I'm going to give away a secret here from Texas when it comes to cookouts and grilling. Nothing holds a more uniform temperature across the board than busted up tempered glass. So, you might have your fire down. Everything's bigger in Texas, by the way. I know guys who have fifth wheel smokers that they pull behind their F-350 and stuff. But,
that's
you got the fire going down here. You've got the smoker here, but you got some water, mesquite, and then you've got at the very end where you're actually cooking the meat, you put busted up tempered glass under it. You will have no hot spots whatsoever. But I don't know why it just occurred to me when Khalid was talking about that. And I was curious if you'd been to Traders Village, because I haven't been in decades. I don't even know if it's still there or not.
Well, there's a couple of people in the chat said that, it's still open and going. And I was going to say, I don't doubt it because, my entire life it's been there. And people, like you're right. We used to go there all the time for that reason, because you could just walk around and you can barter, you can trade for stuff. And it's, back in the day, it was huge. There was a lot of vendors there. And so, you could pretty much get almost anything.
I want to say it was 1989, Randy.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
And a buddy of mine, Mike, and I, we were hanging out, and we go up to this guy's booth, and he's selling, handheld shock units, like, well, like the one I've shown on here before with the zap thing on it, sort of thing. And it took, I don't know, a 9-volt battery or something like that. And I was like, man, there's no way that thing works. And, like that.
Oh, yeah.
It just basically the same type of device as this thing. Anyway, I said, there's no way that thing can hurt you. And he said, whatever it was, like it generated X amount of volts, like thousands of volts. I'm like, bullshit. My buddy, he says, you want to try it? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm always the crash test dummy. You guys know this. He freaking hit me with that thing. I was like 245 at the time, and I went down like a sack of potatoes. So respect the electricity.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But all right, we'll move on to the final segment here, which is segment number 5. And this is basically, you know, I'm trying to think of the right way of saying this, but locking in things so that everything is fair. You introduce some element of fairness without becoming overly bureaucratic, which unfortunately seems to be the way things go when some power get a little bit of people get a little power. You know, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, if we're going to get back to being an advanced society, and we've gone through this, call it post-apocalyptic type of scenario, you do have to, you know, get back to some element of stewardship, for lack of a better term. And, you know, you have to have some element of fairness, which I've already spoke to. And, you know, you're going to have to rebuild infrastructure. Where's that coming from? Where's the money coming from to look after things like roads, bridges, water, sewer treatment plants and all that sort of stuff? So I don't want to go crazy down this rabbit hole, but I've got one question for each of you before we wrap up tonight. Khalid, what happens when a calamity strikes over there in Pakistan, third world country? How do people deal with the hygiene part of things as far as sewage is concerned? Because I don't think a lot of people realize that when things go bad, and we've had water and electricity go out from a hurricane for many weeks, if you think having no power is bad, wait till you've got no water and you can't flush a commode. And it's really, really bad. How have you guys dealt with that? Do you guys get like monsoons, like we get hurricanes or anything like that?
Oh my God. When we get a monsoon, we get mountains that slide down and they block off roads.
Okay.
The biggest problem you have in Pakistan is that when the electricity goes, you don't know when it's going to come back, especially during a storm. We have gone 3 days without electricity, 3 days without electricity, and good luck pumping water. Good luck with sewage systems. You end up having, and I still have them in my houses. They're 10-gallon buckets that we fill up with water. So if we lose water, that is just for hygiene. That is not drinking. That's not potable water where you drink, because you can always buy water in the market. You can buy bottled water in the market, so that problem you can solve easily. But you don't use bottled water for your washroom stuff, unless it's brushing your teeth, washing your face. When we lose water, it's buckets of water that we're using then. And we're fortunate because we've been through this so many times that I have 3 or 4 buckets of 5, 10-gallon that are full of water at all times. So if I were to, for example, my electricity goes out now and I don't know when it's coming back, I know how much I need to shower with. I know how much I need for the washroom. I know how much I need to wash my face with. I know how to brush my teeth with it. I have a kerosene, what do you guys call it? Yeah, kerosene cylinder that has a burner on top of it, so I can cook the water and make it drinkable. These are all things that you learn, because when I first came to Pakistan, I was lost. But the first time we lost water, I was like, holy shit, now what do we do? And it was a process of learning for me. Keep a little bit of water. Keep a few bottles of water in the fridge that is clean water that you bought from the store that you can use for brushing your teeth, washing your face. As far as the bathroom goes, do your bathroom stuff, but you need water to pour on top of it so it goes down the drain. So make sure you get a bucket. So I started off with a 2-gallon bucket, slowly increase. I got to 10 gallons. Now I keep 3 10-gallon buckets in my house. So it's a learning process. But for an American who has never been through this, you guys have got to condition yourself to the mentality of like you're out in a campground someplace. You may have to dig a hole someplace in your yard to go to the bathroom because your sewage system is gone.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize just how big of a problem that is. So, Randy, before I come to you, I just want to show something quickly here. You guys have heard me mention this before, and that's a water bob. And as you can see, I mean, we bought the last time we bought one, we have several of them. We use them. So when we know a hurricane's coming, this product right here, and the last time we bought it, as you can see, was April 2024. It was $24. Now it's $34. But this is basically a big bladder that goes in your bathtub, holds approximately 100 gallons of water with a hand pump on it. And we put those in both of our bathtubs before we get hit by a hurricane, because we've gone without water and it is absolutely miserable. So anybody who's looking for a simple way for a quick backup for water in case there's something, some calamity heading your way. Of course, it doesn't do any good if you have riots break out and you've terrorist attacks and you didn't anticipate it. But either way, for $34, it's still something decent worth having. But my question for you, Randy, is we're basically talking about rebuilding society, not from scratch, but darn near close to it if things get as bad as some people predict, right? If we end up in this Teotihuacan type scenario, what role can the church play to help get our, call it systems, for lack of a better term, peoples and processes together equal systems, to get back on the horse? There's got to be a role for churches in my mind.
Well, there always has been, right? And there will be again. One, they bring people together. Churches and congregations have resources. Now, when this thing happens, those resources aren't probably going to last very long either, just from their congregation. But it's another part of a network, right? And again, more two eyes and two brains are better than one. So, and then you have people that care that are in the church.
True.
So there's going to be a different mentality, right? And as we mentioned, people are going to have to put their heads together to figure some of this stuff out and put it back into place, where it will, it could get bad enough that it would be from scratch. You know what I mean? And we'll learn those methods because they're not going to learn it in the next few months. That I can promise you. That's not going to happen. But those of us that survive will have to learn those other techniques and other stuff, whether it be repairing your road out front, which we're not going to do really, you know what I mean? But it may be your house, your buddy's house, or where you store your food or something else, but if you also have some of your church family left, guess what? You're not by yourself. You're not alone. So within that, in strength in numbers, that could be part of your numbers, and I would say that would be a good place to start, because if you're in a good church, we know what that means, right? And generally those people aren't going to just overtly try to take advantage of you. I can't say that's 100% because obviously nothing is, but overall we could say that generally that would be. And again, it comes down to you have a strength in numbers, whether it's trying to rebuild, figure things out, put things back together, come up with different ideas, do the brainstorming. All that is going to matter in this situation because, as we've already pointed out many times just in this hour or two, most Americans are not ready for this. We haven't had to survive and live like this in this country in well over a century, easily over 100 years ago. And so all those, just like you mentioned earlier, in the 50s, predominantly most families got their vegetables and fruits from their own garden. That has completely disappeared. So we're back to being like the settlers that came across, right? The only reason those guys made it is because the Indians here taught us how to survive in this land. The people that made it here were no better than we are right now. They had no skills, and you're going to have to relearn those, whether it be hunting, and even though that will become scarce also, you're going to have to become a forager. You're going to have to become a gardener. You're going to have to learn all those skills. And if you have a church family, chances are more of them survived as well, right? Not everybody's going to get killed right off the bat or die over the next 2 or 3 months. Although it will be significant, there will be survivors. So the more networks you have, the more people you're in touch with, the better off you're going to be of having some of those people survive and be able to help you out.
Yeah, I think the main word is really community. That the
Yes.
church gives you strength in numbers, community, and hopefully people you can trust, and some element of conflict resolution from level-headed people. Hopefully,
Well, it'll sort itself out fairly quickly, because what Khalid said, that will be no different. I guarantee you, back in the 1800s and even previous time to the 1400s, when we started settling this place, you went to Baker Street, and that's where all the bakers were, right? And you went to Tomato Street, and that's where all the tomato guys were. But in dealing with those over time, you're going to know the ones you can trust and the ones you can't. And the ones that you can't, like he said, are going to move on or move out, or they're going to have to change their ways, because, again, people are going to remember how they were treated. We all will.
always, yeah. That's the old adage that people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, important stuff. So at the end of the day, just a really quick summary of tonight's discussion. Number one, if nothing else, the January 2025 attack in New Orleans shows that radical ISIS radicalized people are inside of our country, willing to kill people and do bad things. 9/11 2.0 will see cascading failures. So when you add up all the totality of all the calamities, you can expect other things to go down, including the power grid, communications networks, supply chains, food supply, all of those things. So it would behoove you at this particular point in time, harden your home, stack up on things like food and water to the best of your ability, and also prepare for economic / financial devastation like the Great Depression and the dollar no longer having any value as far as buying something is concerned. Look at places like Zimbabwe, where they had like 1,000,000% hyperinflation occur overnight when their currency crashed. So have some plan B, have something in place. And at the end of the day, if we don't need it, that's great. That's a good problem to have. But if you invest in things like coins, for example, I come back to it because I'm told by a lot of people, coins is where it's at for this type of post-apocalyptic stuff. Invest in coins that are made of precious metals, and people don't have to test it. They know that that coin, made by this mint, had X% of whatever in it and is worth, X%. So that's it for that part of the broadcast. We've got the Carnival Hero of the Day. I got a warning from Chrome saying that I've lost audio from tabs. So I don't even know if the sound will play or not. If it doesn't, just kind of sing it along with me. Khalid and Randy and I will sing the Carnival little blurb. So protect your ears. Could you guys hear that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's only the second time I've got that error, and the last time I had to reload the page, so it kicked everybody out of the podcast. I'm thinking, man, I don't know if I really want to go down that one again, but we got a good one tonight for the hero of the night from Carnival. And actually, to be quite honest with you, this could double for Sunday night when I do my personal podcast, which is at seaheaven.substack.com. It's the Sea Heaven Show every Sunday night, 7 p.m. I don't do the hero of the day on Sunday nights. I do the retard of the day. Well, this next video has both. It has the retard of the day and the hero of the day together in the same 10-second video.
This is a special video.
This is a very special video right here. And so the person who posted it says, this dad is a hero. Do you agree? So the guy in the red hat is clearly the hero. And this mental case over here is clearly the retard of the day. 10 seconds. Here we go.
I don't got on your volume.
So, Randy, do you remember? I want to say it was like 2012, 2013. Some mentally ill tranny like this tried to go into a woman's restroom in Target somewhere in the Metroplex, and the Dallas Morning News interviewed the guy afterwards. It was one of the funniest I've ever seen because the father beat the crap out of this tranny, and it went to court, and all charges were dropped. He was found innocent, sort of thing, right? So this reporter from the Dallas Morning News says to the guy, why didn't you let him in the restroom when this guy said that he identifies as a woman? His answer was, because I identify as a dentist.
And he needs some dental work like
And
right now.
he knocked that thing's teeth out, but pretty funny stuff. Anyway, so there you go. First time ever. You all seen this for the very first time. This is the hero of the day and the retard of the day in the same video. We're groundbreaking stuff here tonight. So speaking of groundbreaking stuff, check this out. I went and gathered a bunch of information. So let me back this up for a second. This is in place of the reader submitted story of the day. So somebody sent me a link to this post, very articulate young man speaking with regards to SNAP benefits. And it painted a really, really, terrible situation for anybody who's in support of SNAP, but it sounded a little bit, kind of off the rails to me. So I went and researched it. And it was this guy, he maybe made an honest mistake, maybe he didn't, I don't know. But the claims that he had, as much as we'd like to think, or I'd like to think that he was correct, he wasn't. He over-exaggerated the reality of the situation. But check this out. So I gathered this from a bunch of places. It all came up with the same stuff. So in this particular instance, I said, create a chart showing SNAP participation by groups sorted from high to low, with the following groups: whites, black, Hasidic Jews, Muslims, Afghanis, Somalians. And here's what came up. And this is from 2023 data. So basically what this is almost 50% of Afghanis who are in America are living off of us from SNAP benefits. Go down to the Somalis here. You're looking at about 42.5% of Somalis in America are, on the public dole. I call them fresh air inspectors. If you go to Hasidic Jews, this one surprised me. See, when I hover over it, 40% of Hasidic Jews in America are on SNAP. Let me go back to these ones. So there you go. Somalis 42.4 and Afghanis 45.6. Okay. So then black Americans here, 23.3%. Let's go down to Muslims, 16%. Let's go down to WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, 8.6%. So people like to speak in absolute numbers, but WASPs make up 60% of the American population. So you're talking absolute, not relative numbers. Yeah, there might be more because there's more white people. But when you talk relative terms, that chart basically says it all right there. And I brought this up because tomorrow we've got this food apocalypse fixing to start over SNAP benefits, and you're going to see some ugly shit unfold this weekend, and it ain't going to end anytime soon. No. And I caution all of you to be very, very careful going to the grocery from now on. Khalid, to you first. I want to hear your thoughts on the SNAP stuff. How does this better our country by bringing in these people, letting them come in, and then essentially putting them on the public dole and turning them into fresh air inspectors? And how does this enrich our country? How does this make America a better country? What skills are they bringing to the table other than being fresh air inspectors?
This has been the problem with the U.S. for the past 20 years. I mean, the number of people that have migrated to, quote unquote, migrated to the U.S. and taken up houses, gotten ATM cards from the government, gotten food stamps from the government, gotten welfare from the government, and are paid to sit at home and do nothing. I'm sure if we start making the correlation, a lot of these people have big social media accounts. They are spending all their time on their mobile phones. They might be OnlyFans. They might be this. They might be this. They have taken care. They have decided what we're going to do is we're going to run in the black economy, generate money for ourselves, not show it to the government, but expect the government to take care of us. The reason I say it that way is because we have had Afghanis in Pakistan since 1989. No, sorry, 1979.
Wow.
The drug culture came from them. We didn't even know drugs in Pakistan until the Afghanis came to Pakistan. All of a sudden, heroin, opium, hashish were openly available on city streets. Prostitution started with them. I'm talking about my own country, that what I have seen myself, the amount of smuggling they do, the amount of black market business they do, they are able to, with begging, calling themselves refugees, they are able to buy houses that are worth millions of dollars.
Wow.
From all the money they made from the black economy, from smuggling, from prostitution. There are literally buildings in Islamabad that are full of Afghani girls. That's their trade, that's their practice. Guy comes in, does their business, 5,000, 10,000 rupees, which to you would be about 100, 150, $200 per shot. That money is never shown to the government. It is generated to them. There's weapons being dealt. There are drugs being dealt. All black economy. And they have minted money off of this. I will guarantee you they're doing the same thing in the US as well. They are running a black economy of their own, generating money for themselves, telling the government, take care of us, pay for my food, pay for my housing, and at the same time building up a wealth base for themselves.
Well, I mean, we see instances all the time of somebody, driving a Mercedes, and it turns out that they're on some form of welfare, and the entitlement's just crazy. Randy, I mean, how do we get out of this situation? Because how many times have we talked about food causing riots and bad things happening? It looks like this is going to come to a head, really quickly here.
Yeah, I think that's how we get out of it. I don't think, there's no steering out of it at this point. And we don't, the problem is just like what we're watching with Trump, he's got a certain part of the government and in the agencies doing what he wants and what should be happening. But then we have this whole other side in all these agencies and offices across the country that are doing what they want to do instead, or what they're calling resistance, right? And so we're not going to get out of this, because we have to realize that's why they brought all these people in and put them on these benefits, was to help break this country. That is why that is, because again, this is the only time in history that we've allowed people to come into the country just to come in here and take benefits. Most of the other time that any immigration took place, there were professionals, they had professional degrees, or people that are going to come in and contribute and assimilate. That's not what we're looking here. And we're just putting people, as we've now learned, that the Biden administration put over 5 million in. It's probably more than that, because we know they lie about the numbers. 5 million people on Social Security and all the other benefits that come with it, although they've never paid a penny into it and they're not deserving of these things. They gave it to them anyway. And, what that does, it just helps. I mean, look what it's done to the black community. Let's just take that for an example. What I talked about in the 60s, where Woodward is this guy's last name, something like that. But he has his own hall in D.C., very smart man. And he went over all of where the black community was before 65, when we started all those benefits, to where it is today. And it's night and day difference. Yeah. And that's no different than what we're building with all these foreigners we're bringing in that have no skills and are doing nothing but coming here to draw benefits. They're going to have that same sense of entitlement. Why? Because they've been handed to them for free. Why would they work when they're just going to hand it to them? And that is the part we talked about earlier. We're not going to be able to survive of a class of entitlement of folks that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until, we can't afford it, even in this country.
True story. So we only got a couple of things left to wrap up tonight. Last mention of this, less than 3 hours to go. The 30% discount on Survival Dispatch Guardian memberships ends at midnight Eastern time tonight. So like I said, less than 3 hours here. So if you go to survivaldispatch.news, you won't see this live video after we finish this broadcast, but you will see Join the Guardians up top. Click on that, and you'll see all the value adds here, all the things that you get. You get invited to 4 signal chats, which includes the Survival Dispatch emergency notification system. You get behind the scenes content. You get early access to content. You get full sit reps 5 days a week with all of the sources that go with it. There's a ton of benefits. And right now, when you get the 30% discount on this, $52.49 a year. So that's 2.5 months for free, less than $5 a month, less than the cost of one coffee, or $5.59 a month when you go monthly. Either way, you get the same benefits. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, Khalid and I wrote a document, a 72-hour collapse plan, how to survive the first 3 days of chaos. So when you sign up, then that plus all the other e-magazines that we have becomes available to you. And like I say, it ends at midnight tonight. So if you want to get the best price ever, we've never done this before, by the way. We've never offered discounts on memberships. So, and I don't know when we'll ever do this again. But I really appreciate everybody who signed up already. But we try to pile as much value into the memberships as we can. Here's my take on it, Khalid and Randy. If you have a group that generates 10 to 12,000 messages per week in a Signal channel, I'd say there's a pretty good indication of the community, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
All right. So that being said, let's jump ahead to the conflict question of the night. Society has collapsed and Gordon is contemplating traveling a great distance. What would be the safest way to travel between large distances after the collapse of modern safety? How would you go about doing this? So, Randy, you're center stage. You get to go first.
Well, it's in an apocalyptic situation. You're going. One of the things we got to figure out, and that won't be determined till then. But typically, traveling at night has always been better. Why? Because you can't be seen as easily. So you're definitely moving far distances. Here's reality. So, like what I learned in the Q course, if we had to do this, like if I was given this and we were going through schoolhouse still, or we were in real world, then we're going to have a topographical map. If you don't have one of those, get a map, something. But basically, you need to stay in the shadows and the low areas, right? Because you don't want to be seen. You don't want to silhouette yourself up on some ridge line. And you certainly don't want to cross what we call is a danger area, which would be a wide open big field.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, you're not going the shortest path, folks. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the most safe. It's going to be out of the way in the lower lying areas and anywhere that you can use to hide yourself. And then you're probably, not going to be able to move real fast either, because whether it's an animal or humans, movement catches your eye. Mm-hmm. So it's another thing that you would be careful of, because generally in this type of situation, if you're out moving over a long distance, what are you? You are very vulnerable.
Yeah, true.
Very vulnerable. So you have to be very safe and calculated when you do this. And again, being convenient, being faster, none of that even computes to it anymore. And if you're thinking that way, guess what's going to happen? Probably not anything good. So just take your time, stay in the lower lying, the darker areas, in the slower moving. Heck, some of the things in the infantry, whether you do, you look for the worst place possible, the swamp, you know what I mean? And you traverse next to that because no one is there.
Yeah, true story. So funny. And it doesn't surprise me that the Green Beret makes the suggestion to move at night. My good friend Don Mann, who was a Navy SEAL, served for 20 years. Then he served for 23 years in the CIA with Jeff MD, and he has a show called Surviving Man. We were shooting an entire season in Tampa a couple of years ago, and we were at Tampa Bay Clays, which is out in the country. It's a couple 100-acre facility.
Yeah.
And so he would get everybody up at, they'd be there at 5 a.m. doing morning PT, shoot 2 episodes a day. Then my wife and I would interview them for Surviving Man Aftermath. So people would come to expect, okay, Chris and Cindy are doing the aftermath, which means we're almost done. Thank God we can go get something to eat and relax tonight. And he says, oh, by the way, we're going on a recce right now. So everybody grab your stuff. Here we go. He took the entire crew on a mission with like a flashlight and a paper map and nothing else, and had them neck deep in swamps in Florida doing a recce through the middle of the night with everything in the world that wants to kill you. from snakes to
Yep.
brown recluses, you name it. And it was crazy, but they all did it. These are like, super elite people. So hats off to them for pulling that off. But the other thing I'll quickly mention, and then I'll let Khalid wrap up on this question. If you're going to be moving at night, you've got to be aware of infrared reflectivity of whatever you're wearing. And so there's a lot of fabrics out there that just light up like a Christmas tree when you put an IR illuminator on them. And there's a company called Confusion Camo. They have a retail line. They're out of Germany, and it's called the Ghost Hoodie. It's more than just a hoodie. It's not just a ghillie suit, but it's ultra lightweight. So you can go out in Florida weather, for example, not sweat to death. I have had their stuff on before, and so I had somebody walk 5 feet away from me repeatedly and couldn't see me. This stuff is unbelievable. And that was during the daytime. Then I put my wife in it at nighttime when we were doing some night vision testing, and it was incredible how she just blended into everything. So if you're into that sort of thing, have a look. Confusion Camo Ghost Hoodie. Like if you search on it, you should find it. I think there's one company in America that sells it. I can tell you straight up, zero IR reflectivity. People can't see you when you're wearing this stuff. And number two, I'm getting ready to do another economy NVG video, so night vision goggles. And I've got the winner from the last time that we did it 2 years ago with a new one that I'm going to be pitting head to head over this weekend. And we'll see what 2 years in additional development has resulted in. These are economy NVGs, $210 to $230, $40 a piece. It's not, what you would use for military operations or anything like that. It's digital rendering, which means that if you have it on a tripod or you're holding it steady, you can see just fine. But if you were to be walking, not even running, you would have all sorts of lag because of the digital rendering. That's coming very soon. So stay tuned for that. Khalid, how are you moving and not getting killed in this post-apocalyptic world?
Well, Randy's right. I mean, you move in the shadows. When we move for ops, we're always moving at night. What we found is that if you can get your hands on a horse, that will make it a lot more, make your travel time a lot more effective. But finding a horse and buying a horse, that's a big problem. The biggest thing we always do is it's night movement all the time. And we are in the tree lines. We are in the shadows because we're not dealing with, snakes and animals that'll kill us. We're dealing with terrorists that want to kill us.
Right.
So when you move through those areas, you're always looking to move where you have someplace to duck and hide. So it takes us longer to move. It takes us a lot longer to move from point A to point B, but it's a very safe movement for us. Daytime is always settled. Find a cave, go into a cave, settle in there. Find an empty house, an empty cabin someplace, go in, settle there for the day. Stay out of public view during the daytime. When the sun's up, no one sees you. When the sun goes down, you start moving again. It's a mentality you have to build because we're so used to taking the straight road and getting in the car and driving the straight road, turning our lights on and go down the road. No big deal. But when you start looking at it from this situation where the world has collapsed, you are not safe from even your own neighbor. If your neighbor knows you have something, he'll try and get it from you. So the more careful you are in your movement, in the way you show yourself, in the way you operate, the better off you're going to be.
So I've got a product sitting over here. I think I mentioned it to you before, Khalid, but I'm going to pull it up so people can see this because it's pretty interesting stuff. So it's called RIT, R-I-T, and this is a clothing dye. So if you put an IR illuminator on, let's say you've got a plate carrier, a backpack, whatever, and when you have different types of materials mixed together, it's not unusual for one of those materials to just light up like an IR beacon. This stuff here, this RIT dye, you can put that on clothing and dye it to all the different colors you can see, and it absorbs the infrared instead of reflecting. It's called a FLIR rating, FLIR, and that'll take a non-FLIR compliant piece of clothing and make it compliant almost 100% of the time. It's pretty slick. Depends on the absorption rate of the cloth or the material that you're putting it on. But if you want to hide from IR illuminators, that's your cheap way of doing it right there. I think it's $11.99 or whatever it was a piece. So,
well, did y'all see Alex Jones yesterday? Khalid mentioned your neighbor's not going to be your friend. I think it's Alex Jones, right? He's the white guy that's kind of our age, that's so outspoken. Yeah.
I've been on InfoWars before, just for the record.
Did you see yesterday he came out and said, listen, he talked about the cannibalism thing, and I don't know if he was someone at the Donner Party, but he said, hey, listen, we're in the times of, what I'm doing? I'm rating each one of my neighbors right now to determine which one of them I can eat first, because my kids are not going to starve. We will eat you. And, that's what it's going to come down to. So people got to realize that, if Alex Jones is saying it, he's not the only one thinking that, people.
Yeah, true story. True. Horrible topic to even consider, but that's it for tonight's podcast. I want to remind everybody that carnivalt.com, these guys are our premier sponsor. Use the code EATMEAT to get a 10% discount. Anything over $99, you get free shipping on it. This is 100% American. The bag's American. The O2 absorber's American. The meat is 100% American, not stuff coming in from Argentina or some other country. You're talking grass finished, not just grass fed. Grass fed means the last few weeks they porked them up with grains, and they have all the same crap in them that they'd be if they weren't grass fed. So grass finished, no antibiotics, no mRNA, no histamines. This is a super high quality product, and these guys have cracked the code on freeze drying meat with a 25 plus year shelf life in those bags. Originally, we thought it would be a really big deal with preppers, because it doesn't matter if the power goes out, you can have dehydrated or freeze dried, meat. It's not dehydrated. It is dehydrated, but it's freeze dried. 0.05% moisture content. But if you have to hike anywhere and you have a water filter, like a Sawyer water filter, you don't need to carry anything that weighs anything. This bag, for example, was 6 ounces, 150 grams of protein. And when you reconstitute it with water, it's 1.5 pounds of premium raw American steak. Everybody else cooks their stuff, then they freeze dry it. Then when you cook it and heat it up again, it turns into shoe leather, which is why everybody else's, freeze dried meat, is little tiny chunks that taste like you're chewing on a piece of leather. But these guys are all American, and their ranchers are all American. And it's not this crap that's been meat glued together. Doesn't have any of those issues whatsoever. And they came out with single servings, by the way, about a month ago. They can't keep them in stock. So you buy a box, it has 12 servings in it. Each serving has 25 grams, super high quality protein. You would have to eat. I was talking to Josh Bryan about this. He's a friend of mine. He's a living legend in the strength and conditioning world. And he said you can take a lot of other products where it says it's 50, 60, 70 grams of protein, and it still doesn't equal what your body gets out of 25 grams of whole food protein, especially from steak. So again, we don't get any affiliate payment from them, but when you use the code EATMEAT, it does tie it back to us. They pay us a monthly stipend, which is very, very much appreciated. Helps us defer our expenses. So if you want to support the channel but get something good out of it, go buy some Carnivalt meat. You can't beat it. Other than that, I will be back Sunday night. I don't know if anybody will be with me. That's on my private Substack or personal Substack, C Heaven. So you can see my name down below, Chris Heaven, letter C Heaven, at .substack.com. So cheaven.substack.com, or go to survivaldispatch.news. There's a link on the side. I'll have an hour of crazy, zany stuff that'll start your week with a big smile. Then the crew here will be back with Jeff MD on Monday with the next episode in our long war series. I think we've covered all the bases. We beat this horse to death. It's time to put a wrap on things. I appreciate all of you very, very much. Your support means the world to me, and it helps us get the message out to more people. And at the end of the day, that's our mission: dispatch information to our fellow Americans and friends of America so you all can survive in these very dangerous times. That's it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless America.
And enjoy the closing video. It's a new one.